Zorin OS has long been a top popular Linux distribution. Here we are going to have a look at why that is and probably some tips as to how they can consider improving even more as we do a deep dive looking at Zorin 17 beta in this video. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we want to talk about Zorin. The latest version, Zorin OS 17, is due out here on the 20th of this month. So that is 4 days from the time that this video is set to be released. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this. Now, Zorin is based on Ubuntu, but it is highly customized primarily as a Gnome version. Now, there is a light version, which is based on XFCE. We are not going to be looking at that one today. In fact, some of the criticisms that I have might actually be resolved in that particular distribution. I haven't had a look at that. Now, in addition to the regular core, we also have a Pro version that has more software bundled with it, more theme options, and installation support as well. So you can pay for Zorin as well. Now, what we want to do here is I want to go ahead and just have a brief look at their website, because Zorin OS, I think, is one of those distributions that really is working on doing it right. They are a distribution that is curated for the masses. You can buy computers with Zorin on it, and coming soon, they will have a new application called Zorin Grid, which will allow businesses and academic environments to manage larger amounts of computers at the same time. And so you can have a look over the website at Zorin.com. The Zorin Grid is the manage Zorin OS powered computers in your business, school, or organization. And then you actually have options for purchasing computers. So we have laptop with Linux and we have Star Labs. So here we have these are computers. I think they ship worldwide and they are from the Netherlands. And over here we have Star Labs from the United Kingdom, also ships worldwide. And these guys here have, there's tablets. Oh, if you can get Zorin on a tablet, that'd be fun. Might have to look into that. We have the Byte, we have the Starfighter, we have the Starbook. No Death Star? Come on, guys. So you can go ahead and buy a computer with Zorin on it, or you can just go ahead and download it. Now, if you want to download it, there are a few options. Of course, the Pro version, the big advantage of the Pro version, it costs $40, and this does really help support the Zorin project. In fact, I'd say if Zorin is your daily driver, you should consider supporting the project in any event, whether or not you buy the Pro or not. You might be like, I don't need all the extra software or layouts, but have some money anyway. That's cool. For everybody else, you can grab the core version, and we have the light version. The light version is for lower spec PCs based on XFCE. Core version is based on a heavily modified Gnome. So as far as that, let's go ahead and have a brief look over at Grid as well. So over here at Grid, this is coming soon, and the idea here is they're going to have a means by which you can control the variety of computers. So you can see they'll have here a panel online, so the computers will be talking probably to a centralized online network, and then you can do batch adjustments to the systems all at one time. So that is good. Now, for the primary build here, the core, this is based on Gnome, and so we're going to have a look at that. Now, the extra things that Zorin has that Ubuntu doesn't, there's more drivers available. They've done a better job of supporting more devices out of the box. We'll get into it, but on the installation, you have options to choose open source or proprietary drivers, particularly for your NVIDIA. So you'll have a lot of functions. Now, with Zorin as good as it is, why do I still use Linux Mint? Well, stick around to the end of the video, and I will go ahead and talk about why I still prefer Linux Mint. But with that, we're going to head on over to the desktop so we can have a look at Zorin, and I'm going to walk you through the basic installation. We're going to look at the overall Zorin OS, what it looks like. We're going to talk about what's new, going through their blog posts about the new things that are coming. And I did highlight a number of issues I found with it. In fact, I can say as I was reporting more and more issues, I was thinking, man, it sounds like I hate this distribution. I don't. I think Zorin is a really good distribution, but there are a few little questions that I have that made me wonder. And so I decided, well, let's go ahead and do this. And if nothing else, hopefully it is a positive spin to say, hey, why are we doing these things? And it's very possible also the answers to some of the questions I asked is out there. I did not do a massive deep dive through every blog post that they've had in the last couple of years. But I did raise a few questions and concerns. So stick around to the end of the video for that. Of course, we wrap up with that bonus, why I still like a Linux Mint better. And hey, with a green background, let's go ahead and jump on over there now. So the installation is nice and easy. It starts out, of course, asking us, do we want to just use the default or NVIDIA or general open source drivers? And then the installation is very simple. We have options for ZFS or ext4 with LVM and encryption. Installer is very easy. There's really nothing there that we really need to discuss any further. Now, the Linux kernel in this is 6.2.0. They do actually have things compiled for the hardware enablement stack and probably a few other ones, although they don't have a specific easy GUI way to make any changes to the kernel. But let's go ahead and first do a quick walkthrough of Zorin for anybody that might be new to Zorin. So Zorin itself, it is a GNOME-based system, but it has multiple layouts available to you. And in all of these different layouts, you can set it up kind of like a Mac, kind of like a Windows. There's a number of different layout options that one may have inside of here. And so really the core option here is the Zorin Appearance app. And the Zorin Appearance app, this will toggle it between this kind of Windows, this like a more of a modern Windows type view. We have more of a classic one, which is going to have your panels out there like that. Of course, everything is still tabbed. So if I were to open something up, then these don't behave as quick launchers. They behave as tabs. We have more like a classic GNOME / Mac. And then actually, I think this one's probably more like a Mac that's going to have a dash to dock. You can see our panel stuff is up here. And let's see. I think this is more traditional GNOME is what I'd call it. And then I think this one's probably more like a Windows 11 type approach here. Of course, your main GNOME apps is over here in the corner, not over here. Now, there are a few other desktop options available coming soon, and there are also more options, better Windows and Mac clone layouts in the Pro version, which we talked about briefly. We'll go ahead and keep it as our main default. You can change your accent colors and your application icons and things like that. So you can do all that. Now, the effects, we'll get into these a little bit more, but I've enabled these. These are the new spatial layout options that when you're going to do apps, you'll see these nice, beautiful spatial layout options instead. And so you have to enable those. Also, we have advanced window tiling will need enabled if you want to use that. The advanced window tiling allows you to use quarter tiles, whereas GNOME traditionally only has the full and the half. But now with that, you can actually do your quarter tiles as well. So that is what we have as an option over there. And the other options, of course, we can enable our desktop icons for things that you might want on your desktop. And then you can adjust your icon size between just a few items. Or you can disable icons on your desktop altogether if you are inclined to do that. And so overall, that is what we find inside of our Zorin system. Most of the rest of it is fairly standard layout. I think that Zorin Appearance tool is your biggest change in the system, and that's probably your biggest attachment to it. Looking down at the About the System here, we do have Zorin OS. We are on Wayland as the default. You can enable X from the login screen, but Wayland is the default, excuse me. Inside of our software repository, we have Flatpaks enabled, and we have the repository. Zorin, despite being based on Ubuntu, does not install snaps by default. But of course you can install it. It doesn't take the Linux Mint approach of blocking snap unless you do something specific. But let's just do a search for Kden Live. I like searching for Kden Live because there's multiple different versions of this software floating around. And if you click in on the application, you can see the default goes to FlatHub, but you also have the apt package availability as well. Now, in their documentation, they say the Software Center is newly redesigned. It's just the Gnome Software Center. I think they say it's newly redesigned because they are just catching up with Gnome. We'll get into this a little bit more, but this doesn't even run Gnome 45 like Ubuntu does. It doesn't run Gnome 44 like Manjaro does, curiously. It is back in the arcane days of Gnome 43. And so I think that what they got at with their new redesigned software panel is just the new neutered version that Gnome gave us, which I don't think is necessarily an improvement. That's not a hate on Zorin. That's just since the last time I think they updated it, and my apologies, I haven't followed the Zorin development super closely over the years, but the Gnome Software Center used to be a lot more organized, and they made it like more quote-unquote user-friendly, which means removing a bunch of the functions and features. So whatever. Now there is a comfortable amount of software in here. Oh, I meant to do this, not pull that up. So we do have a new option here for all applications, so we can see everything. If you want to see what's in the categories, you can do this. See, we have a weather apps, we have text editors, files. We just have just a few simple basic applications for various features, contacts, calendars. They do have evolution. I support evolution over Thunderbird of things. We have Presario. I'm still scratching my head on that one. We have Rhythmbox. And under our system tools, we have enough to really make it a really nice system. Of course, when you first launch Zorin entirely, very epic noises. I like the epic noises. We do have this tour. So we can start the tour and it tells us about the applications. Of course, we can come into here and we can search for anything we want. So if we want to do Firefox, that's giving us just our basic application. But you can also have it search for settings. You can have it search for characters, things in the Software Center. So there's a lot of different things that you can have it search for, and you can configure this inside the settings panel. I think this is more under the what is a new option. So we'll just go ahead and jump on over here. Here's the new items in Zorin. Here's your choose your layout, of course. If you're in a virtual machine like we are, install the guest editions. You can connect your online accounts. Zorin Connect, Software Center. So there you have it. So getting into the what is new, a lot of the what is new inside their system are some of the new features in Gnome 45, which for some reason they didn't switch to Gnome 45, probably too much extension development, and there was a radical change between Gnome 44 and Gnome 45. So the thing about Zorin is it is a highly, highly customized Gnome, and my guess is that there were enough radical changes from even 43 to 44, let alone 44 to 45, that they couldn't keep it up. So I'm not sure if there's a big push about it. They might be talking about it. Like I said, I don't follow the Zorin development a lot, but I do know here that in December in 2023, Gnome 45.2 is just out, and for some reason we're still running 43.9, which is interesting. So we'll get into that a little bit more in a bit, but we want to talk about what is new. Most of what is new is just changes that have been coming up in Gnome that have been ported back into the older version, or that are new since the last time they did a refresh, because Gnome progress has been very positive. So if you notice down here when we search for fire, you're getting like fonts showing up. If you're like, okay, I don't want that, you just turn off the characters. Okay. And then you can go ahead and configure what's going to show up in this menu based on this. So if I let's do something new. I might see, hey, look, in New Delhi and Newcastle. So you can get our clocks like, okay, I don't need that in my search function. You can turn those items off. So you can turn on or off different things. But, you know, if there's photos that you have named and you want to have search for photos, that's cool. I mean, this is really nice. I like the fact that we can search our contacts in the start menu if we want to. And so that is very nice options. Also down inside of here, let's do the multitasking first. So the multitasking does control where the applications from your Alt tab are coming from. So let me just open up a few more things on this window. There's a terminal. Here's a files. And when we do our Alt tab, this is our nice new spatial layout option. You can choose from this screen here if those are coming from all workspaces or just the current workspaces. So you have that. We also have new power settings. Of course, these are not new if you are new to Gnome. The power settings were put in there a little while back. You'll notice that I have balanced and power saver. I don't have performance. That could be because I'm on a laptop not plugged into the battery. That could be because I'm on a virtual machine, but their documentation suggests I should also see a performance setting in here as well, which I don't see. Again, maybe that's because we're not plugged in. Let me turn on my electricity and we'll reload this screen and see if that happens. Of course, this is the laptop that does some weird funky things when we're plugged into a power source. So I try not to run it, not to record rather when we are doing this. But well, I mean, I'm plugged in. It's not showing up as I'm plugged in yet. Oh, there it goes. Now it shows I'm plugged in. Let's go ahead and restart the settings and see if that helps. No. So for whatever reason, I'm not seeing the options for the performance. But, you know, whatever. That is what it is. Maybe that is the virtual machine. Is that what it is? So as far as your other new features, they talk about the spatial desktop and they talk about the 3D desktop. The spatial desktop is here. It's not enabled by default, but it works. What I can't see working anywhere is the three-dimensional desktop. Again, is that because are we in a virtual machine and that interferes? Or what is it? Of course, you turn these on over here under effects. Here's your switch between workspaces in 3D. And if you pull up the little settings panel for this guy, then you'll see under the desktop, hey, click and drag and rotate the cubes. Click and drag the panel to rotate cubes. Which, this panel, or this panel? I don't know. In theory, okay, maybe that's it. All right, we just got to grab the panels in there. Okay, I found it. It took a while, but I found it. Okay, it's cool. It looks neat. Bling, we got bling, folks. We got bling. I finally found it. I was looking for that for a good 20 minutes. All right, we figured it out. All right, so that's going to be functioning under this mode here, which is our basic switcher mode. You just got to grab the panels and do that, or I think depending on what you're doing, you should be able to grab the applications as well if your settings are turned on quite right. Let's see. I can't click and drag the desktop to rotate cube. I'm not sure. Let me turn this guy on there and see if that allows me to do it. See, I would figure based on that wording that would allow me to do that. Where's that at? So see, drag windows to the edge of the screen. Okay, I don't know. Is it that? Which, of course, doesn't work. So I don't know. There's a little bit of funkiness going on in the 3D workspace. I did finally figure it out, so that's exciting. The tiling, which is under the Zorin Appearance interface, this also needs enabled. It's not enabled by default, but I've never actually gotten this gear to show up. So in theory, there's settings. I don't know where and how those settings are at. I've clicked on that button several times, and I have never gotten anything up. Let's go ahead and get rid of our terminal here. So please give me my settings, and I have no settings. There you have it. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, I hit that button 50 times earlier. I've never gotten the settings panel to show up. There it is. It's set up. Okay, good to know. I'm getting unpredictable responses here, and that does concern me a little bit. And so custom tiling, we need it set up. Quick settings, we mentioned that already. Oh, there's a new screencast option. Of course, this is something that also is inside of Zorin, or excuse me, inside of Gnome, and they put it up here. Now they actually don't tell us about that when they're in the panel, but they tell us just to push the print screen button. So if you know where the print screen button is, I know that's a thing of the past, but from here you can choose a selection, the full screen, or just a specific window, and then you can do a picture or a screencast. Of course, this does not record audio, it just records picture. And this is nothing specific to Zorin. This is a new feature inside of Gnome. They didn't mention that it was up here in the settings panel there, for whatever reason, but it's there. And the last thing, of course, I do like when Linux distribution puts this in, I do like talking about it. And so let's go ahead and talk about it briefly. And that is they've given us parental controls. So you need to come in and make sure that you have a non-administrative user. So I have here the child user. So let's go ahead and first unlock our users panel. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. And now under our child, we can make it an administrator. We can enable the parental controls by clicking this button. Of course, you have to enter our password once again to do that. I do find this limited. I find it a lot more limited than the one we find inside of Elementary OS. But we can restrict web browsers, so prevent the child from running any web browsers at all. So if you want them to be able to access a computer but not get on the internet, you can go ahead and do that. You can restrict applications. My big issue I have with this is none of the applications that comes installed with by default allow you to restrict them. So in theory, if you install some other application, it should show up here. But if there happens to be some application that comes pre-installed, you can't restrict that. Now, maybe that's because they're like, wait, what? Well, you know, is there anything on there that can do anything nefarious? You can restrict application installation. And then if the application does happen to have an age attached to it, you can have this. I'm not sure how reliable this is going to be. Are there actual ages put on the applications? Is this some metadata somewhere that you can see? I just don't know. This is the first time I've seen this rating system inside of applications in Linux. Somebody please elucidate me, or maybe I'll look into it myself a little bit. But there you can go ahead and turn those guys on there, and it looks like we are now enabled because we made some changes. And there you have it. So it does have the parental controls. So those are the new features within the system itself. Now let's talk about some things that I didn't like. First and foremost, you may have noticed a little bit through the video that it's not super responsive. And I've always encountered this. Even when I've tested out Zorin on real hardware, it has never been as snappy to me as I like. Now, they say in their documentation they have made it much more snappier. It might be a little bit snappier than it used to be, but it's still pretty stinking slow in my opinion. And so for that reason, I don't like Gnome because of that. This is like a Gnome issue, I think. And I think it's a Gnome plus whatever we've done to make it look pretty and blinged out. I don't care as much about the bling as I care about fast functionality. I don't like hitting my menu button and waiting 3 seconds for a menu to pop up. And that has been my experience on Zorin, whether I've been in a virtual machine or on real hardware. Is it that they don't like AMD processors or what? I just don't know. But the next thing that I thought was bloat. Now, this was interesting because they actually mentioned in here, they talked about the pre-installed app selection. Due to popular demand, we reviewed the app selection to include only the most essential apps in the core edition of Zorin OS 17. The default games like Solitaire and Mines are no longer included to make Zorin OS more suitable to an office environment. Maps and To-Do are also no longer included. However, you still have access to the software store, of course. So they have removed applications like the To-Do and the Maps, but they kept Brassario, and I'm scratching my head over this one. I like Brassario. I think it's a useful application, but most computers these days don't have CD drives in them. Even most towers are built that when I want to build a computer that has a CD drive, I have to hunt high and low and probably find like a Dollar General discount rack case that still even supports a bay for a CD drive. On a laptop, is there a laptop on the current market, a modern laptop that actually has a CD drive? Of course, we might be talking about the external drives, which I use mine about as much as I use my old Sony Walkman. So why is Brasaro still in this application list when we've taken out things like the to-do this system and the maps? I mean, granted, maps sucks anyway, and I've never used the to-do tool, so sure, I can understand that. But why keep things like Brasaro? The other app in here that was on my list is Windows App Support. So what this does is, all this thing does is it pulls up the Software Center and then queues up the Software Center to an application that will basically run your Windows OS applications. See, it's like we clicked it and it says the Software Center is ready. Is it ready? There you go. Okay. Maybe it was ready. It just wasn't giving me an indication. And so this will run Windows apps in Zorin with Wine and Play on Linux. So I guess a special Play on Linux container specifically for applications. I think this is probably something that you should not have on your menu or as an application in your system to call this from the store. This might be an option that you have on the installation of the software itself. Because for me, I'm sorry, I will never be using Windows App Support. And if I have to come in here every single time I pull up my menu, and I'm keep hitting my key for that, why I hate Gnome. I don't like this screen. I want the menu. Anytime I come in here and I run across the Windows App Support, I want to no, why? Why? The other application that to me is curious is Remina. Remina is a remote desktop application. Now, it is really good that Zorin has the underlying utilities that you need to get your remote desktop, because it makes Zorin a good candidate to put on a parent's computer so that you can remote desktop in, maybe with Remina. But Remina is used to access the other computer, and this is not a task everybody needs. Probably one that you can also get rid of. So there's 3 big bloaty apps that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Especially when you say you've streamlined all of the apps. As I mentioned before, let's see. It is not super responsive. We already talked about that one. None of the new features, all of the new blingy features, the 3D desktop and the new spatial desktop and the new tiling options, none of those are enabled by default. I think those should be enabled by default. Why are we not enabling some of the best things, especially when the distribution itself focuses on looking good and attractive and new, nice appearances? So those should be enabled by default, in my opinion. And we addressed the power settings earlier. If you go down here, I do have the balance and the power saver, but I don't have the option. Of course, that's not the screen where it would be at. It would be under this screen here. But when we go under the power options inside of our settings panel, you'll notice that I don't have the performance. Their documentation had it, and I don't know why that's missing. Again, VirtualBox, AMD processor, not plugged in. I don't know. I'm not sure. And part of the issues, I think, it's still running GNOME 43. Now, GNOME 45 was deeply controversial. Manjaro held back GNOME 45, keeping GNOME 44 because of some of the extensions Manjaro wants to run. But that's one version back, as they're presumably working on getting all of their extensions working with the new manifest details inside of GNOME 45. But why is Zorin, with a brand new release that's not even out yet, why is it still running GNOME 43? I don't remember there being massive differences between 43 and even 44. I'd figure they'd be on a later version of GNOME. And that tells me there's something going on underlying in the system that is going to be interfering with the newer versions of GNOME, and it makes me wonder, are they going to be ready for a switch to 45? Because 43 is getting pretty old the way that GNOME development goes. Parental control apps, that was limited. It's okay, but it was limited. Now, this gets me to my biggest primary reason, and it's going to lead us into our bonus content here. Why is it that I would want to use Linux Mint rather than this? I mean, Zorin is such a nice distribution. It's got all these cool layouts and things. Here is, in my opinion, the problem with this. And I think that this is something that we're going to find inside of a lot of areas of society. I look at it when I'm building WordPress websites for people, and I say, somebody's like, I want a new website. Can you build a site? I got the DV theme. I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you buy yourself a theme from Envato? The thing is, you buy these themes and they are massive and huge and bloated and slow your site down. Now, you can do absolutely anything with these themes, but the problem is 99.9% of the crap that is bundled in it, all of which makes the system run super slow, slows your whole site down, bogs your server down, takes excessive amounts of memory. Well, Zorin does the same thing. I know exactly what type of computer I want to have. I know what type of layout. I know what type of behavior. Why do we have this ability to say, well, I'm going to run a Mac today. I'm going to switch to a Windows layout tomorrow. I think I'll use this thing in between there. Hey, I'll go back to vanilla Gnome today. With all of these options available to us, I see this as a problem because to run all these things and have all these layouts causes extra memory use and extra bloat for a reason that is very superficial. Somebody could switch this and set it up the way they want, but it has so much extra stuff going on that somebody, once they figure out what they want, will never actually need it. And because of that, it is an extra application taking extra system resources to do extra layout options when I could just use Cinnamon that has the exact layout without anything else to make it look like a Mac, because I can't think of a scenario outside of hitting my head really hard that I might want to do that to myself. Now, that is a matter of personal preference. If you like the way the Mac layout is, you'd be better off using a basic GNOME layout and a dash to dock, which is way simpler to do than this application that's going to have all these layouts going all over the place. This isn't to say Zorin is horrible. I don't think that at all. I think Zorin is an excellent distribution. I'm just pointing out some of the criticisms is when you make a distribution that can be all things to all people, the problem is you lose a lot of the streamlining that makes it good for anybody. And that, I think, is what Zorin's ultimate problem is. We have the Windows application tool to make it easy for running Wine and Play on Linux to install Windows applications, but a lot of your audience doesn't need that and will never need that. Why is it an extra item? We have the Zorin Appearance to have all these different, we have the 3D animation stuff, but it's not turned on by default. Why? I don't know. I'm not saying Zorin is horrible. And I certainly don't want to paint that picture because it truly is a great distribution. The problem I have, of course, I criticize all of my distributions. Why? Because we can take it, we can learn from it and go, that's interesting. And maybe if enough people say, yeah, maybe there is some validity to that. Who knows? Maybe Zorin will watch this video and say, you know what? When we release this guy on the 20th, let's go ahead and enable that spatial desktop. Let's enable that 3D, the 3D desktop. Let's enable that tile and grid by default so that people have the latest and greatest without having to go through the menus to find them. Maybe let's see if we can't, maybe not in this version, probably take too much work, but see if we can put that Windows app application on the installation menu instead. I mean, Manjaro did that with the software, right? Or with the Office suites. Would you like to have no Office suite? Would you like to have this Office suite or that Office suite? You could do that. Yeah, installer with that. So those are kind of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about this. Of course, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Turn on the notification bell if you are so inclined to have notifications, and we will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.